All right, and that's a wrap. The Colorado Avalanche season comes to an end in tragic fashion, a double overtime loss to the Dallas Stars. And that wraps up their season. A lot to talk about on today's episode. Stick with us. New episode of Locked On Avalanche coming at you.
Your Locked On Avalanche, your daily podcast on the Colorado Avalanche. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
All right, everybody. Welcome to the Locked On Avalanche podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Chris Maselli. With me, as always, Mr. Shaggy Von Doom, Kyle Sullivan. Thank you for tuning in, making it your first listen of the day. Always appreciated. Make sure you're following us on our social media outlets, LOPN_Avalanche on Twitter, X, Locked On Avalanche on Instagram and Threads. Questions, comments, concerns, and opinions, lockedonavalanche@gmail.com. And follow us on our YouTube channel. Hit subscribe, get notified when a new show goes live. And make sure you are subscribed to our subtext as well. Link to that's in the show notes below. And when you do chat with Kyle and I one-on-one, we get your opinion on everything Avalanche related, which we share on this very podcast. All right, sir. The plan was to record after that episode, but when it goes into double overtime, that's a little bit late. So we were just like, you know what? Season's come to an end. Let's just digest this for a little bit, and we'll just do an episode later on that day, technically, is what we're doing. And yeah, man, I mean, the Avs have been in existence for almost 30 years, right? Almost 30 years. And in all but 3 of those seasons, you have this feeling. That's what makes those championships feel so good, because they are so difficult to win. So you've felt this way more than you've felt the good way in winning a championship, but it doesn't make it any easier when the season does come to an end. So obviously a lot to get to with this game, as the Avs lose it in double overtime. But kind of just your take on I guess the broad picture of the season, and we'll talk about early expectations a little bit later. But what's your take on this?
If the Avalanche were able to put the little things together and put themselves in a better position, we would not be here sad, tired, looking back, nostalgic, and have our dreams ruined by one Matthew Duchene.
That's the kicker for a lot of people, is the one who won it for them is Matt Duchene, and he did it in Avalanche Arena. So yeah, that twists the knife a little bit. You can't deny that. For the people that still have it out for Matt Duchene, I have been on record where I'm not that person. You are. We are. This is a split house here at Locked On Avalanche. But even though that I have moved on from the Matt Duchene exercise, it does. The history with him and the team, and there is still a big subset of Avalanche fans who just will never forgive him. And even though I'm not in that camp, it does hurt a little bit that he is the one that puck just scoots right to him and an easy put home to end this game.
And it's even more fitting. Like it was very, if you like iconography and just like good pictures to carry you on to the next round, the picture of Matt Duchene roofing that shot over a sitting Nathan MacKinnon, and Suter shaking the hand of Parise going on to the next round. That's 2 stories that are, it's kind of full circle, interesting little tidbits, but it's just rough for Avalanche fans to digest that Parise is likely done and Nathan MacKinnon is being exited out of the playoffs to his young protege and Matt Duchene, and he gets to carry on, and we'll see where this goes.
As far as this season as a whole, and we'll talk more about it when we do off-season grades and things like that. It always sucks when the season ends, right? And you had an opportunity to push this thing to 7 games. When you go into double overtime, you must be doing something right during the game. And I thought the Avs in this game did a lot right. But it just overall for this season, it was. There's always a kind of a common thread for a season. I think it's true for every team. And not that long ago, it was injuries for the Avalanche, overcoming injuries and things like that. This year, it was just inconsistency. And from every aspect of the game, from the goaltending, from the defense to the special teams, I think the offense is really the only part of their game all season long that was consistent in scoring goals, and that goes as to show that they had the most goals in the league. But everything else was just they never, or very, I don't want to say never. There were a few times during the course of the season where they did put it all together, and you were thinking like, okay, then they finally got it, and it took a little while, it took longer than we wanted it to, but they finally put it together, and that's good heading into the playoffs. But then before you even get to the playoffs, then there's just faltering again. So that is just the like I said, the common thread of this season is just this whole up and down. It carried over into the playoffs, man. Carried over into the first round. That first game, remove that. They looked fantastic against Winnipeg. And then you go into the series against Dallas, and it was back to all of this. You never know what you're going to get.
And I think, honestly, if you wanted to wrap up the 2023-2024 season for the Avalanche in one sentence, and it's kind of fitting by the guy who scored the last goal for the Colorado Avalanche in this campaign, they left a lot on the table. They had the opportunity when we were talking about the Avs could do this and this to win the Central, and when they were chasing the Stars, and everybody's they're focused on the Cup. Just wait till we get to the playoffs. Now you see why it matters. And for somebody who left a lot on the table, Mikko Rantanen. If we had this kind of effort, just a little step up, somewhere in this Dallas series, it would be a little bit of a different picture. It's not that far of a hill to climb. You're asking the Avalanche to win 3 games in a row. It's rough. It's a challenge, but they can do it. But there's so many things they left on the table to make this such a difficult position all year long for the Avalanche to climb out of, whether it's getting behind, being a comeback team, letting leads go, never leading in a playoff series. So many storylines throughout the year shows up in this series, and that's the story of this entire season.
And I think when it comes to this game in particular, like the game that they got eliminated for, like I thought they played a good game. I thought this was and both teams played a very good game. And let's not kid ourselves, like the better team won this series. I think that goes without saying, but let's say it because that's true. This was going to be a challenge for the Avalanche to win this series, just like it should have been more of a challenge for Dallas to win this series. And I think, but I think the Avalanche found their game, but just it was a little bit too late. The first few games of this, even though they won the first game, you had to come back to do it. So yeah, you won it, but let's take it into context. And then as the next few games went along, Dallas made it difficult for you. The Avalanche kind of figured it out and got their legs back and got their game back. But when you do it, when you're in game 5 and then into game 6, Dallas only needs a couple bounces to go their way to end the series. You need constant bounces to stay in the series and prolong it to 7 games. And that's exactly what happened. Dallas got the one bounce that they need, and Matt Duchene buried it, and now it's over. Where you needed bounces to go your way just to get to another game 7, and then it's just like the law of averages just don't add up when the Avalanche put yourself into the situation that they did. So, give them credit for fighting to the end and almost making this thing go. You had a lot of opportunities. You had a ton of opportunities. Ottinger was incredible. Incredible. Georgiev was incredible. Both goalies had a fantastic game in this game 6. But Ottinger, man, I mean, there were so many times the Avalanche could have had another goal, which is clearly what they needed. And I'll say this too. While he was great, Ottinger was fantastic. I mean, the defense by the Stars, I mean, how many just getting sticks in the lane and just tipping it just enough to, have the puck go not where an Avalanche player wanted it to go. They were incredible in getting sticks on pucks, disrupting passing lanes. They were fantastic at it. And even having said that, the Avalanche still had a good amount of chances. And when they did get a chance, Ottinger shut it down. So it's tough. It is tough to do, and you needed to do that, like you said, 3 times in a row. It was a big hill to climb, and Dallas finished it off.
And I see everybody talking about how the Avs responded and finding that urgency and finding their game and honestly carrying it to 2 overtimes. But again, this is one of those things. The Avalanche should have had this urgency from the beginning. We talked about that in regular season. If you would have started games with urgency, the minutes would have been a little bit more even. It would have been a easier road, an easier. I mean, you could see it in this series. If they would have came out in this urgency with their back against the wall, maybe in game 1, maybe game 2, this would have been a little bit easier where you're dictating things. This was so reactive for Colorado later in this series with how Dallas was playing you. And Dallas, I agree with you. They are the better team, and I like how they're constructed. We'll see how they go the rest of the way, but that's a scary, dangerous team. And the Avalanche let them dictate this entire series.
And how we were saying, you need to kind of in any game, you need to capitalize on other teams' mistakes. I'm not saying that Ottinger made mistakes, but this was a game where he was giving you a couple rebounds.
Mm-hmm.
And the Avs were there was one, I think it was Parise, who was right on the right hand side, and it was just out of his reach from the stick. And there was another one that Lehkonen got it, and he kind of like semi whiffed on it. So he gave you a couple opportunities, and you don't get those a lot from him. His rebound control was fantastic in this series. And if he's going to give them to you, you got to bury those.
Yep.
I'm not saying it's, it was easy to do because those, it's a fast moving game. And, it's tough to get, especially on rebounds, puck is bouncing, to get a solid stick on that. But when those things didn't happen, especially the Parise one, wide open goal, and it's just out of his reach, his stick length. And I'm sitting there like, man, that one, we could have used that one. I'm not blaming him or anything, but it's just those little things that didn't go the Avs' way where they needed those things. They needed it tough. So,
and that's how the rest of the West plays the Avalanche, because that's how they figured out over time how to beat the Avs. Now the Avs have to figure out how to capitalize on those mistakes when they're given to them, when they're doing the Avalanche way and it's not working. You have to capitalize on those mistakes, and those are crucial ones that you pointed out.
So more to talk about with this game. We're going to talk about that overtime reversal. Dallas thought they had the game won, and the goal immediately called off and then reviewed, and that call was upheld. We'll talk about that because why not? And obviously we have our sound check to get to as well a little bit later. Let's get our first break in, and when we come back on the other side, we got more on the Avs' last game of the season, unfortunately. Let's hear from Game Time. It's an authorized ticket marketplace for the NBA, which makes getting playoff tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to tip-off, with killer last-minute deals, all-in pricing, views from your seats, and their lowest price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets. Some of the things that we love about the Game Time app: you have those flash deals, which we talk about all the time, even zone deals, your all-in pricing. The price you see is the price that you pay, no surprise fees at checkout. And the view from your seats, the way it's incorporated into the app, is just beautiful. There's nothing like it. So download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. And again, create the account and redeem the code LOCKEDONNHL, LOCKEDON NHL, for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, getting back to this game 6 between the Avalanche and the Stars, which the Stars obviously win and send the Avalanche home packing. This game is more of what I thought this whole series was going to be like. This was a very evenly matched game. Nobody was really outpacing anybody by a lot in shots on goal until overtime. And Dallas really turned up the juice in overtime. I thought the Avalanche, for regulation, I don't want to say we're like in command of this game, because there was back and forth. Like this game was great in that teams were taking control and having the offensive, just like an onslaught, and then the other team would take it away and they would be the aggressors. And it was just back and forth wide open game. I loved it. This is more of what I was expecting from this series. And then overtime came, and you felt like the Avalanche were just on their heels. And I even posted, it was like you kind of felt like if the Avalanche were going to win this thing, it was going to be kind of fluky, so like a star's mistake maybe, or just a bounce that went the Avs' way. I just thought Dallas really commanded, for the most part, both overtimes, and we'll get to the reversal in a second. But I just want to get your take on what you thought, if you saw something similar.
No, I completely agree. When it was Mikko Rantanen on the power play, and they held that for a while, and you felt good about the Avalanche and what they were putting together and their shift to a defensive mentality. I love seeing the Avalanche set plays up behind the net and slow down. You would see them take those passes and not continually push and push and push. They would sit and wait and drain a little of the clock and wait for things to set up, wait for a proper change. I like seeing those little wrinkles. That's a perfect way to eliminate mistakes. But then when Dallas flips it around with Jamie Benn to even it up, you just knew, oh, here we go again. And then I would love a 7-game series of these two teams playing to this level, because this was exciting hockey all the way down to overtime. Honestly, it was 2:00 in the morning when this game was wrapped up, and I was fine with another go 4 overtimes.
Yeah, I'm with you there.
It was so much fun watching them pin. It didn't matter what side you're on. You both had shifts where you were pinning your opposition down for a minute and a half to 2 minutes and 10 seconds in their own zone. And you're watching just dead tired players play instinctively, not making crucial mistakes that allowed the game to break down. They would clear, make proper changes, and then things would shift. And just watching just fundamentally sound hockey, give me 6 overtimes, please.
Yeah. You kind of thought maybe he was heading in that direction, but I mean, as far as the overtime shots on goal, for the first overtime, Dallas outshot the Avs 11-4. So, in overtime, it was like, okay, is Dallas the more calm, cool, collected team? And is the Avalanche just trying to be a little bit too perfect, or are they just on their heels? I don't know. Just they didn't look like they did for the first 3 periods of this game. And then in overtime, you had the shots by, it was Marchment, I think, who thought he had the game winner, and it was immediately called off. It wasn't something where they went and, I mean, they did review it, but it was immediately called off. And in the end, I mean, it's no harm, no foul, because Dallas ends up winning this thing. If they had not, and the Avalanche went on to win this, you are having conversations until the end of these playoffs and beyond on, do we need to address what goalie interference is? Because it is just it's the most trivial call, if you ask me, in the sport. And it's just, you genuinely don't know what is and what it, I mean, for me, man, it's like there is an argument to be had on both sides for most goalie interferences. I think this one is a perfect example of it, because the way that it's written, both sides have an argument. The way it's written is like, did the goalie have an opportunity to play his position? Alexander Georgiev is in the crease. Matt Duchene is not. So, but there is a gray line. There is a line where both of those things can happen. And there you go. Like, Duchene's not in the crease, but Georgiev is. But they're right next to each other. What are you gonna like? The way that this played out is, I was confident they were not going to overturn it and make it a goal, because there is no way they are going to overturn a call to win a game and end a team season. It's not going to happen. So if you're saying like, oh, if they called it a goal, would they have do I think they would have overturned that? No, I don't. I think if they called it a goal and went to go review it, they were not going to overturn it either. So whatever call happened was sticking. So it's a tough. I'm leaning towards it was not goal interference than it was. But there are arguments to be. You had Henrik Lundqvist on TNT saying like, yeah, I'm leaning towards it was. He is a goalie, so who knows? But go ahead.
And I'd add an extra layer to that. Cale Makar is doing all of the manipulating of Matt Duchene.
He is pushing him into him, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So if this was a goal, that also would play a factor in this review process. That's not really Matt Duchene's doing. That's Cale Makar pushing, and that would also play a factor. And I'll go on record and say, I'm glad that got well, not glad because the Avalanche got bounced, but
Right.
I would not feel good as an Avalanche fan. This would be like the Ottawa call we had last year.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I would not have been happy about advancing to a game 7 knowing this is the way that it had to happen, because that was a good goal. And for the refs to only call one power play per side all game long,
Yeah.
and then to
Yeah.
be so instantaneous with calling a no goal, like there wasn't even. We're talking like double minors and reviewing those and reviewing and calling them down and overdoing those double minors and calling majors. But this was an instantaneous call, not a consult. That I thought that was a little weird and a little bit of an overstep. And I just did not like any of that call. And it honestly should have went Dallas's way.
There were just no calls all over the place in this game. Cale Makar threw the puck out of the, over the boards. That was a delay of game which they missed. I think Marchment ripped the helmet. I think I counted 3 Avalanche helmets that got ripped off. That is a penalty. If you want to sit here and be like, oh man, it's the playoffs, fine, but it's still a penalty. Like, what's the rule is if you rip their helmet off, it's a penalty. And then he sucker punches them and Makar goes down. They don't call that. Fine. Okay. But you're right. I mean, and then you call that. I mean, yeah, I kind of, I don't know, man. Like, I don't want to waffle on this thing because what the league put out was the Makar kind of like angling Duchene into Georgiev. They weren't looking at, like, they were saying Duchene made contact with him before that even happened. And he did, but at the point of he's not in the crease and Georgiev is. So what do you like? This is like, you can't, the rule is you're talking out of both sides of your mouth, because this right here is exactly where both guys are in the right. Georgiev's part of in the crease, which is his. Duchene is not, but there is contact between the two. So they went the route of calling a goal interference on it. They got to clear it up.
And to go a further point to the referees not having control of this game, you remember when they had the ice crew come out during an icing and both teams returned to the bench and they have to get out there and clean the ice, and it just negates the advantage of the icing call. You're not getting your exhausted defense because they're sitting and having a rest while they're scraping off the ice. That's never supposed to happen. So for that to be allowed, that was also very, very interesting.
Yeah. So, and like we said, Dallas gets the win, so you're not hearing about it a ton, but you would be. And you know what? You even though that they did get the win, it's got to get. This is like pass interference in the NFL. Remember, like we just didn't know what pass interference is, and the league had to go to the extreme of like really fine tuning the rules for it. I think this is the one rule for the NHL that they really need to kind of say, like, it's an easy call. Maybe they already think that, but if they think that, they're not calling it right on the ice.
Yeah.
So do I think they got, it's tough to answer that question if I feel like they got it right, because there is a little bit of contact. Is it and is Georgiev allowed to play his position is what I always go to. I don't know. I go back to, they were not going to overturn that. They're not going to end a series on an overturned call. So the Avalanche got a little bit lucky. They couldn't take advantage of it. And overall, I do. I think they played a good game. I think they played a solid game. I think they figured out what system works against Dallas. And we saw in Winnipeg, they were able to get how many goals past Connor Hellebuck? They just couldn't do that consistently against Dallas and Ottinger. And that's the difference. I thought defensively, both teams were really good in this game. Dallas was fantastic defensively. I thought the Avs were really good. But the Avalanche did give the Stars a couple opportunities where they would kind of have like kind of bad positioning, but Georgiev bailed them out.
Yeah.
Georgiev was again excellent. And let's take our last break and kind of have that lead into next year. Early talk of next year. We have all off season to do that, but the immediate talk of what we're feeling for next year. Let's do that after this. All right, eBay Motors, passion, drive, and patience. It's the formula for winning championships. Is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. And whether you're into speed, power, or style, which we, of course, call what, Kyle?
The Nathan McKinnon trilogy.
eBay Motors has you covered with over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die. You'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber and not cash. And with all of the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home the win. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. An eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. All right. Early expectations for next year. The Avs going into this season, again, were one of the favorites. You felt, I mean, even though they weren't number one heading into this postseason, you still felt like, okay, can this team turn it on? They have the championship pedigree. Can they turn it on? Going into next year, it's going to be an interesting offseason for the Avalanche. You have the Val Nichushkin situation. You have Gabe Landeskog. Can he make it back? And then you have obviously a list of free agents, restricted and unrestricted. And you don't have really all that much money to do all of this. Let's start with just, and maybe this is tough to answer right now because we don't know what the roster is going to be, and it's going to be a different roster. But knowing the guys you have, knowing the guys that are signed, which is your core guys, you feel good heading into next year and what the Avalanche could do.
Yeah, you're really keeping your eye out again for the Val Nichushkin, Gabe Landeskog situations. What becomes of that? And the deeper this goes, we have new head coaches joining storied franchises and organizations. What do these teams look like? What teams leave these organizations? And what does your Colorado Avalanche team look like next year? Because last year's offseason seemed incredible on paper, and it didn't come to fruition. Had to do a really, significant course correction at the trade deadline to get this playoff team that we saw. They have to redeem themselves a little bit because of the money situation with what moves they make in this offseason, because the Avalanche, for the first time in a while, aren't that cool, sexy team anymore. It's more of the same. Well, we're back in the round two thing.
You are. But I think with the Avs, it's, you have everything revolves around the core. And every team has that, right? Or tries to have it. And the Avs have one of the best cores in the league. So anytime you have that, you're in the mix. What you have to do is hit the depth and middle portion of your roster. You have to hit those right. And I'm not saying the Avalanche didn't, but maybe I really liked this team post trade deadline. I really liked what they did in getting what filling those holes, plugging those holes. I really liked what they looked like post trade deadline. And then you had some more injuries with Logan O'Connor going out and then Yakov Trenin didn't even play in this game, and I thought he was great. Ever since joining the Avs, I thought he was great. I'd really love for him to come back next year. But you have the Nichushkin thing is interesting. For the Avs, I'm just on cap friendly right now. You're at just under 16 million you have in projected cap space. And you have, if Landeskog comes back, there's 7 million right there.
Yep.
If Nichushkin comes back, there, what was he at? He was in the 7 and 8 range, wasn't he? No, he's not. Wow, he's much
Was he
lower
at,
than that.
was he
He's six.
6.2?
6.125. So, I mean, just those two guys take up a chunk of that. If the Valnichuskin thing, again, we will talk about it. People just want Avs to cut bait. I don't see that happening, folks, because you can't trade him. What team is going to take that contract? He's got 6 years left on it. You can't buy him. I mean, you could buy him out, but you're going to be paying that for 12 years. I know you save money on the end of that, but I don't think the Avalanche want to go there. And that is just dead money for years.
And there's not much you could do until November because he's still in the program and he's off limits.
I think the Avalanche I think they just have to welcome him back and try to do this again and say, like, okay, maybe this time something clicks for him and he gets it. Give him even more support than he had before in terms of like a positive routine that he can do daily where he's not tempted or whatever temptations were, whatever his triggers were, don't have to be around them. I don't know what it is, but I think you need to prepare yourself for Valnichuskin coming back to this team. And I know a lot of people don't want to hear that, but they will have those conversations with him. And if they feel like he is genuine and he's done his best to try to correct this, they give it another go. He's obviously important to this team. There's a lot of years left on his contract. I don't see them just throwing that in the garbage right now.
And what they need to do is put their arm around Val and say, "Hey, buddy, let's try LTIR." And then Val looks at him and says, "What are you talking about?" LTIR stands for Let's Try in Retirement.
He's a young pup for early retirement, and he's got a lot of money on the table. I don't know. But we're talking about Nichushkin and Landeskog. If both of those things come back together, I think one just helps the other. You know what I mean? Like having Gabe Landeskog around as your captain, people fall in line. And if Nichushkin can't do that when your leader is, I know he's been around. I know he's been in the locker room. There's a different vibe when the guy's on the ice playing. So maybe that's the angle they take of like, no, he's gonna follow you around.
Yeah.
And that's our captain. So that we'll have to see how all of that plays out. But as far as like the free agents and stuff like that, we talked about if the Nichushkin money comes back, if the Landeskog money comes back, and then you have one restricted free agent, not counting the guys in the AHL, and that is Casey Middlestat. What is he going to command? I think you're looking, and I did the crossover with Locked On Sabres, and I asked him that question, like what was he looking for in Buffalo? Why they could not resign him? And his answer was like in the 5 range, 5 to 5.5. I'm kind of agreement with that. I don't think he's going to be more. Well, you're shaking your head. You think he's going to be command more than that?
I just don't like that number.
So think about this. So what was Nazem Kadri? Nazem Kadri was your 2C, and he was what, 4.5, if I remember correctly. The cap is going to go up a little bit more, so money goes up a little bit more. So I think he's in that realm. I think he's in that range. And people want to like just say like Kadri was excellent for the Avalanche, but we all like it's your last impression of Nazem Kadri was that final year he had in the Avs. He didn't do that for the years before. He did great for the Avs, but that last year was way above and beyond what anybody thought he was capable of doing. Middlestat is kind of, I just feel like he's going to give you what you were getting for the first few years of Nazem Kadri, and should be in the Kadri number salary wise when he was with the Avalanche.
It's the number 37 talking contract going into the offseason. Where have I heard this story before?
Yeah. No, I mean, they're going to sign him. He's restricted. He does have arbitration rights, so it could go in front of a judge who decides it. But even so, like, let's say it's 5. Those 3 guys right there, you're already over that amount. I don't know how, like, this is going to be a interesting offseason for the Avalanche. And then as far as your unrestricteds that you would love to bring back, Jonathan Drouin. I mean, where are we going with him? We would love to have him back, clearly. But what is his number? That's a great unknown. Trennan, I mentioned. Jack Johnson, what's he going to do? It sounds like he wants to come back. Does not sound like Jack Johnson wants to retire.
After
And
his
then,
playoff performance, I say let's do it.
dude, after this year, I would be okay with it. I thought he was fantastic this year. Great. Yep. And that's not to say like, he's going Cale Makar level, but for what he's expected to do, I thought he was great this year. And the guy that I would absolutely love to bring back, Sean Walker.
Yes.
He played great too, but this is his big chance is, you're at that unrestricted 28, 29-year-old. This is my one chance to cash in. Is he just too much for the Avs? So it's going to be interesting for that. So that's why I asked. It's very difficult to say what are the expectations for the Avalanche next year. I still think, even though you don't have the answers to all of those roster questions, what you do know is Cale Makar is going to be there. Mikko Rantanen is going to be there. Nathan McKinnon's going to be there. Josh Manson's going to be there. Devon Taves is going to be there. The guys you have signed can take you far. So is it still like Stanley Cup aspirations? I fully believe it is for the Avalanche. I don't think it's anything other than that.
We'll see.
They're not. When you have Nathan McKinnon at the age he's at, you're going after the cup. You are going after it, year in and year out.
Well, the only
you might not be the best team in the league. You might not be like number one in the league. You might fall at number like 2 or 3 in the division again, but you're still going to put up a lot of points in the standings, and you're still going to be right there, comfortably getting a playoff spot. And who knows what happens in the playoffs.
Well, I completely agree with you there, but the only cup the last 2 years Nathan McKinnon has been chasing is whole 18. There has to be something a little bit more.
Yeah, and I think that's what they want to do in the offseason. Like, they got to figure out how they're going to construct the roster around these guys. And if they do it right, there's no reason to think that they can't go after it again.
I agree about that.
Right.
Yep.
All right. Last bit of business that we got to get to, of course, that is our Locked On Avalanche sound check. And Kyle and I pick one song each that we feel best describes the most recent game. Put it up on a playlist over on Spotify. This is it. This is it for volume 3. So volume, I think is it? I mean, we always maybe sometime if something big happens in the off season, maybe we add an extra song here or there. The hidden tracks, we'll add a hidden track maybe if something happens in the off season. But this could be it for volume 3, or volume 4 is likely to drop in October. So what do you got for this one, sir? The last game of the season for the Avalanche.
This one works on so many levels. You could sit there and chew on it, and you're probably right on its meaning. Blink 182. Man overboard. So sorry, it's over. There's so much more I wanted. There's so much more that I needed. Time keeps moving on, and soon we'll all be gone.
I mean, you went Blink, and you threw a curveball for Blink. I mean, you're not going to put,
Man overboard. Read into that as you will.
Yeah.
And the lyrics that start this song out.
All right.
Multiple layers, like an onion.
For me, I know I just put a Chris Cornell song up not that long ago, but I kind of have to today. May 18th is the anniversary of when he died tragically. So that's when we're recording this episode. Excuse me. So I got to go that route and kind of pay homage to the rock god in my life, which is Chris Cornell. And this is from his solo album, the last solo album he ever did, called Higher Truth. And the name of the song is Wrong Side. And and he just says in the song, throughout the lyrics, is like, I'm on the wrong side again. I'm on the wrong side of the road again. I'm on the wrong side of this. I'm on the wrong side of that. That's what the Avs were, on the wrong side of if you're on the wrong side of winning, you lost. That's what the Avs did. And now we just have questions and got to figure out the offseason, which is going to be exciting. Sometimes for the Avalanche, their off seasons are kind of like dull and not a ton going on. I don't think that's going to be the case this offseason for the Avs. They got a lot to figure out with this roster. Obviously, the draft, free agency, what they're going to do there. So the Avs are going to be an interesting team to watch this offseason. Maybe hopefully you're not on the wrong side of all that stuff. So we'll see how it goes.
It's going to be a ride.
Definitely will be. Thank you, everybody, for coming along for the ride during this season. Clearly didn't end the way you wanted it to, but it's still a fun. I think that's part of it, man, is like when a season's over, yeah, it sucks that you lost, but there's no Avalanche game tomorrow. There's no Avalanche game the day after that. So that's kind of like the bummer part of it all, is like we got to wait months again to see this team in action. So,
Yeah.
But we will be there between now and then and everything in between. But thank you, everybody, for coming along for the ride for this season. It's been fun, but still a lot to do in the offseason, and we'll get to grades, player grades in the coming days here. That is going to wrap it up, everybody. Thank you for tuning in and making it your first listen of the day. For Mr. Shaggy Von Doom, I am Chris Maselli. This is the Locked On Avalanche podcast, and we'll see you guys later.